This lead transformed from a record-breaking 400-kilogram human beanbag into a top-tier heartthrob in just one glorious evening. Since birth, his broken DNA possessed the unfortunate superpower of converting every single microscopic crumb into immediate lard storage, despite his incredibly brutal and secret training sessions. However, everything changed when some local jerks trapped him inside a blazing gymnasium intending to end his story. Those pranksters accidentally jump-started a legendary biological evolution. The massive bonfire incinerated his heavy burden entirely, swapping his hefty frame for the ability to ignore scorching flames. An overclocked metabolism, alongside a chiseled supermodel body. He is currently strolling back into his old homeroom, and he is preparing to psychologically damage every student that once they discover the gorgeous hunk was their former chubby punching bag. To understand how this enormous legend conquered the fire and shattered his destiny, we must revisit a truly tragic doctor visit. The tale commences with a weighty revelation, as our main man openly confesses that he is tremendously rotund. He has fought the war of the bulge forever, and currently we are visiting a specialist while his anxious folks beg for some good news. The physician appears to be contemplating a career change while reading the data, as the oblivious parents ignore the massive sumo wrestler in the room. In the corner, little Zaitan is having a grand time inhaling a salty snack, creating enough noise to drown out his stoic father. The nervous medic inquires about the dad's profession, discovering the man is an elite champion who recently pulverized every heavy hitter in the country. His father is incredibly stern, glaring at the expert with confusion regarding why anyone would worry about his sturdy little boy. The professional is experiencing a mental breakdown, sweating buckets while the parent radiates the energy of a terrifying video game antagonist. At last, the expert snaps and thumps his table, desperate to make these people comprehend the heady weight of the current situation. He clarifies that the youngster has effectively become a sphere, noting that this is a severe biological defect rather than poor eating. While the duck describes this genetic catastrophe, the parents just grin like glitched video game characters while the boy continues his endless feast. The medic sighs, detailing a bizarre internal process where every single calorie converts instantly to blubber, which is a truly terrible character stat. The expert delivers some brutal news about the future, yet the family stays relaxed, totally disregarding every piece of expert guidance. He cautions that ignoring this will lead to a grim path, predicting the boy will face mockery the second he enters a classroom. This specific threat strikes a nerve with young Zaitan, who pauses his chewing as the terrifying concept of social isolation finally registers. The small boy looks horrified, realizing his existence might become a punchline, causing a massive mental breakdown before he even finishes kindergarten. Without warning, his spirit ignites, as he obliterates his crisp packet with a powerful squeeze, signaling the start of his heroic journey. He announces a brand new goal to drop the pounds, beginning his legendary montage phase at the tender age of 5. A couple of years pass but the progress is non-existent, leaving the 7-year-old at 83 kilograms despite running constantly while his parents offer treats. At 9, he is a total behemoth at the seaside, making strangers stare in awe as he navigates the terrain to reach the ocean. He swims 7 kilometers in 5 hours like a determined aquatic beast, yet despite this intense work, his 120-kilogram weight remains stubborn. Picture a wild highway pursuit. Wait, it is actually just Big Tan doing laps. This young fellow generates such momentum that he leaves smoking skid marks on the asphalt. At 11 years old, he clocks in at nearly 400 pounds while outrunning sedans and pulling massive ankle links. Our protagonist evolved from a chunky toddler into a working natural disaster. He gazes mournfully at a neon burger joint where folks feast on crispy wings. However, Tan possesses titanium willpower, ignoring the grease while lurking in the darkness like a very wide ninja. The Julian's kale with the precision of a culinary ninja. The snacks are gone, yet his metabolism seems to be operating under its own chaotic set of physics. Through ever-scorching July and freezing January, the grind continues. He bench presses mountains while the calendar pages fly by, leading us directly into the modern era. Now we have finally arrived in the current year, ready to witness what those years of sweat actually produced. The scene shifts to a local academy where a student is aggressively tapping on a portable gaming device. Clearly, paying attention to the lecture is not on his agenda today. This lad is fully immersed in his digital quest, hammering buttons from his sanctuary in the rear row. He radiates that typical edgy protagonist energy that screams he's too cool for school. Without warning, a crumpled parchment sphere strikes his cranium. He glances up, visibly irritated that some peasant dared to disrupt his high score attempt. A nearby girl is panicked, whispering about the risks of being spotted by the instructor. He simply chuckles, treating the threat of detention like a myth, doubting the teacher has X-ray vision. Wearing a confident grin, he brags about being stationed behind the legendary guardian of students. He believes he has discovered the most impenetrable bunker in the history of education. The view widens to reveal he is absolutely correct. He is hunkered down behind 16-year-old Tan, who weighs nearly 1,000 pounds. This absolute unit serves as a literal biological fortress. Tan contemplates his existence while his sheer bulk obliterates several plastic chairs beneath him. He notes that the physician was partly correct. He is still huge, but nobody bowls a mountain. We transition to the sports field where pupils prepare for heavy iron ball throwing. An electric atmosphere fills the air because the mythical giant, Big Tan, has graced the lawn with his presence. Instead of an outcast, the boy is a campus superstar worshipped like a golden idol. Peers solicit his academic wisdom, offer him tributes of food, and hope some of his greatness rubs off. A follower presents a chocolate treat, but Tan is no longer swayed by sugary temptations. He politely declines, requesting a glass of his trademark swamp celery extract instead. His devoted entourage rushes to fulfill the request, nearly genuflecting as they deliver the repulsive green beverage. The level of fanaticism for this large lad has reached comedic proportions. Despite the constant praise and honorary titles from his fan club, Tan appears profoundly solitary. He views them as companions, yet he senses they see a mascot rather than a person. Abruptly, a blurry object whistles through the atmosphere with a thunderous impact. The missile travels at such a velocity that the surrounding teenagers cannot even blink before it strikes. That object is a football, which collides with the side of Tan's skull with a sickening thud. The sheer kinetic energy of the blow sends his spectacles on a solo flight across the field. This cherished vegetable nectar erupts into a green mist as he stands motionless, dazed by the unprovoked assault. He remains frozen, likely calculating the exact trajectory of the head. The offenders are revealed as a pack of delinquents searching for a victim to harass. The punk with metallic hair is already spewing insults, clearly unaware of the biological tank he just poked. The chrome gnome jerks works, questioning if this oversized fellow is actually the king of the freshmen. The end his fair-haired companion demand cash, exhibiting the behavior of Bart had been antagonists. Tan's expression shifts into a masterpiece of absolute irritation while he looms over them. The thugs refuse to retreat, barking orders for him to cough up the dough and quit daydreaming. Pressure builds as the hooligans escalate their threats, yet the giant remains unmoved, casually rolling a toothpick between his teeth. While onlookers murmur that these attackers are from the boxing club, the crowd starts to panic, identifying the trio as notorious upperclassmen from the school's fighting division. The observers fear that the reign of Big Ten is about to meet a painful conclusion. The Titan lowers his gaze, his features obscured by shadows while he releases a weary breath. Fear is absent from his face, replaced by the look of a man forced to take out the trash. He begins to stump away, each massive footfall vibrating through the soil like a localized earthquake. The clowns believe they have successfully intimidated him, unaware that their medical insurance is about to be tested. While strolling by the athletic gear, his shovel-sized palm descends and snatches a heavy metal sphere. He does not even slow his pace as he lifts the weight like a piece of fruit. Tan pauses briefly to calculate his angle, eyes zeroing in on a specific mark. A nearby female student watches with growing dread, sensing that some punks are about to get a very painful physics lesson. The Colossus mutters some nonsense regarding a temporary loan while preparing a lunch, forcing the maiden to shriek about his intentions with that dense iron orb, propelling the hefty leaden mass with a sonic boom. The behemoth hurls his orb so violently it resembles an artillery shell rather than mere athletic tools. The projectile demolishes the sucker cage, buckling the metal and remaining embedded, proving Shitai manages antagonists by showcasing how his biceps possess their own gravity. Every witness displays a shocked expression, as the ruffians and the lady permit their jaws to hit the gravel in terror at such an exhibition of raw might. The destruction persists while the Titan swivels around with a glowing ruby stare, gripping another metallic sphere like a demonic entity intent on total annihilation. Such a frightening sight forces those hoodlums to flee at top speed, barking out hollow warnings even though their legs are wobbling like gelatinous sticks. Followers instantly recommence the cult-like adoration, hollering for the hunt during his exit as the Titan internalizes the belief that he remains completely untouchable. Nevertheless, the sense of desertion returns promptly, reminding this lonely gargoyle that he dwells within a society that only acknowledges his muscular facade. The viewpoint focuses on his massive ribcage during his stride, highlighting the heavy psychological toll of inhabiting such a colossal, meat-bound vessel every day. His terminal internal reflection remains a devastating critique of his girth, indicating that despite immense power, the Titan views himself merely as a flabby failure. Shifting to the exterior of a massive facility later that evening, we detect the strained wheezing of a person who has clearly run a marathon. Our two villains are lurking near the fair exit, dripping with sweat while the silver-haired brat screams about the total social ruin they just endured. The golden-haired punk experiences a complete mental collapse, baffled by such power while labeling Zaitan an organic panzer and doubting his humanity. Despite his trembling knees, the blonde antagonist refuses to surrender, whispering that various underhanded methods still exist to achieve a satisfying revenge. As the cityscape settles into twilight, their malicious strategy begins to coalesce, driven by a hunger for vengeance performed under the safety of night. From the heart of a fitness center, rhythmic and heavy vibrations resonate, suggesting someone is performing an incredibly intense workout during the midnight hours. Those echoes persist through the vacant corridors, making it quite evident that the individual inside is deeply engrossed in a solitary, grueling physical regime. He is definitely Shitain, exercising like a prehistoric predator, slamming plates and rattling the foundation with a level of ferocity that feels truly supernatural. Hidden behind the doorway, the light-haired thug watches in disbelief, feeling those thundering impacts vibrate through his very marrow like a warning from hell. He glances through the pane, perspiring while witnessing the display, unable to comprehend the logic behind such a terrifying and relentless training session. The realization hits regarding the fact Shitain is a daily regular who grinds prior to the lights failing, a time when no sane person would be pushing the limits. Rooted to the spot by sheer fright, the delinquent acknowledges the giant's pre-existing gutted while noting his private drills, sparking an epiphany about him preparing for homicide. Both miscreants are wallowing in their shameful loss, the Silvermane one sweating at the thought of another encounter with Shitain, yet still craving a petty victory. Standing outside the facility, the blonde lackey tries to chicken out, but his partner ignores him because ruining someone's day is worth some casual vandalism. A satchel stuffed with hardware, adhesives, and suspicious items appears, confirming they have zero interest in a fake scrap and are setting a cowardly snare. They launch a peddler parade, wrapping thick metal links around every entry point to secure him like a dangerous urban legend needing containment. The pale-haired crony fastens the final heavy-duty lock, successfully converting a community gym into a makeshift dungeon specifically designed for their massive rifle. The silver-haired ringleader casually ignites a small flame and flicks it toward the structure, proving these creeps have evolved from simple bullies into actual arsonists. The burning projectile contacts a stream of flammable fluid and begins to ignite, confirming that the cowardly and dangerous task is now officially underway. From the interior, the macroscopic flame looks harmless on the tiles, yet it promises catastrophe, while those loud noises were merely the resonance of his tomb getting sealed. Moments later, our hero stumps through the fitness center like a clumsy giant until he abruptly freezes, his protagonist's spidey senses tingling because something feels remarkably fishy. Scanning his surroundings, he spots his equipment and a weighing machine tucked away, preparing himself for the most convoluted weighing routine in human history. Out comes a collapsed plastic weighting tool from his backpack, because when standard hardware surrenders to your bulk, you must resort to extreme science experiments. Sucking in a lungful of oxygen, he puffs the entire basin full of air instantly, followed by a thunderous deluge of liquid that wets the floor. Class is in session as he hauls a timber deck across, utilizing an old Asian technique once reserved for heavy pachyderms, which is a hilarious cell phone that actually functions. Moving cautiously, he mounts the floating timber in the reservoir, relying entirely on upward thrust like he's a human science fair project about ancient displacement theories. While drifting, he grabs a blade to notch the plastic siding, showcasing some serious academic dedication for a dude who merely wants to drop a few pounds. Transitioning to stage 2, he exits the basin and piles dense azure plates onto the wood, testing how much gold steel is required to hit that line. Stack after stack of heavy iron goes down, aiming for the exact fluid alignment necessary to solve the mystery of his massive physical volume. Shifting the metal chunks to a normal weighing device for the grand total, he crunches the numbers and looks like a man about to receive bad news. Puddled on the towels, soaked and completely spent, he glares at the readout, knowing the instant of reckoning has finally arrived. His eyes fixate on the dial as it emits a metallic chime. Seeing the pointer refuse to swing toward the lower digits he desperately desired, despondency hits him while captions about Couchon measuring a heavy beast float nearby, leaving him feeling like a colossal disappointment to the world of fitness. The arithmetic is savage, adding 200 plus 21, as the pointer clicks onto the final total with a depressing thud. Tears erupt as he wails about gaining an extra kilogram, realizing all that gross vegetable juice was useless against his clearly demonically possessed digestive system. Amidst his loud blubbering, the training facility begins radiating a bright tangerine hue, though he is too busy wallowing to see the structure is actually combusting. Flames roar across the room, wrapping everything in a lethal crimson mist that suggests this is far more serious than a simple toaster mishap. At last his nose twitches with confusion, as a pungent aroma of charcoal and burning insulation finally penetrates his thick cloud of misery. His pupils dilate as he registers the peril, and the temperature spikes to blistering levels, so his crying instantly switches to a desperate quest for oxygen. A literal ocean of fire covers the ground, leaving him paralyzed and questioning if the heat is real, though it is definitely not for roasting marshmallows. Freaking out, he douses himself with the remaining lukewarm pool water, knowing he must locate an escape route before he becomes a human stir-fry. Sprinting toward the hallway, he slams into the portal with a heavy thud, yet the exit remains sealed, leaving him stuck inside a giant air fryer. He pummels the metal with all his strength, but the heavy restraints left by those jerks won't snap, while the inferno's glare burns his retinas. A sequence shows him frantically threshing against every surface, howling as the foundation trembles, making this place look like a very expensive crematorium. Support pillars fracture with explosive cracks as the roof begins raining debris, leaving him gasping for breath while the clock ticks toward his doom. Launching his bulk at the masonry, he shrieks with absolute panic, inhaling thick soot while the radiating heat starts to cook him like a Thanksgiving turkey. Eventually his legs give out while the architecture disintegrates, leaving him kneeling and choking as his vision fades into a bright, snowy void. Amidst absolute dread, a tight shot reveals his grime-streaked face, and he wonders silently if his life ends here while sparks dance through the air. A weak limb stretches into the thick haze, a pathetic plea for assistance that nobody can hear, signaling a grim conclusion for the large fellow. The urban horizon features the sports center transforming into a massive torch, just as a spooky voice whispers, "No, your time is not up yet." Without warning, a finger's first emergence from the smoldering ruins proves the dude cheated death, crawling out of a spicy basement like a determined mole. He erupts from the trash pile with a thunderous roar, rocking his birthday suit while sporting a whole new vibe, as if the flames incinerated his very identity. Standing tall while being reborn under the sun, he gazes at his slender palms and catches a glimpse of a stud in some debris, muttering that he survived while his intense fitness journey concludes in the wildest makeover ever witnessed by mankind. The protagonist blinks at the fresh scenery with a face that even his mother would forget, resembling a high-end fashion icon with piercing pupils, quietly greeting the day while checking out his own reflection. Surrounded by the smoldering remains of the fitness center, light beams through the ceiling as he wobbles around, hallucinating a companion in the dust and shouting for a sibling like a lost puppy. Catching a glimpse of his own silhouette in a jagged window pane, he fails to recognize himself, politely inquiring if the attractive man in the glass also got stuck in the recent oven disaster. Annoyed by the silent treatment from the stranger, he gets real cozy with a glass, flaunting his chiseled jaw and pretty face while screaming at the mirror for a verbal response. Thumping against the surface with his palms, he descends into a chaotic spiral of bewilderment, posing in his birthday suit amidst the wreckage, unaware he is now the most attractive man alive. Clinging to the razor-sharp edges of the shattered mirror, his palms begin to leak crimson, allowing the stinging sensation to snap his brain back into reality from his delusional trance. Glancing at his messy fingers before returning his gaze to the glass with massive pupils, the mental machinery finally starts clicking as he investigates the stunning mug staring back at him. Total awareness strikes him like a speeding truck, acknowledging that the gorgeous fellow is indeed his own self, and he cannot help but admire his own incredibly high levels of handsomeness. The dramatic comparison displays the former 400-kilogram version of himself alongside his current ripped physique, showcasing the pinnacle of physical change, witnessing the juicy results of his secret and extremely sweaty gym sessions. Beyond the rubble, reality arrives with a chorus of sirens and flashing lights as emergency vehicles surround the area, signaling that his grand introduction to society is about to happen. Surveying the charred mess, he acknowledges the sheer cringe of his current predicament, noting that being stark naked in a crispy workout facility is not exactly a legendary cinematic debut. Fear takes hold when he decides to flee to avoid a jail sentence for streaking, desperately scanning the debris for any scrap of fabric to hide his newfound muscular glory. Nabbing some vibrant crimson posters covered in motivational quotes about energy and heart, he sees beyond the garbage, viewing the scraps as the perfect materials for a homemade wardrobe. Eyeing the promotional signs for a local talent show, a scheme develops in his mind, deciding that since trousers are unavailable, he will simply rock some avant-garde advertising reps. The camera zooms in on his focused expression as he prepares to bolt, having transitioned from a death-defying workout to a post-apocalyptic tailor in less than several minutes of action. The scene shifts toward the bustling streets of a major metropolis, specifically a crowded working district on a bright afternoon, where citizens remain oblivious to the incoming nude-spreading disaster. Massive towers shimmer beneath the radiant sky while pedestrians handle their daily chores, providing an ideal setting for what will soon become an incredibly bizarre and memorable urban encounter. The central plaza overflows with folks relishing their afternoon, completely unaware that a mythical figure of pure muscle is currently hauling butt directly into the peaceful social space. The violent gust of wind tears through the masses as a streak of crimson fabric and bare flesh zips by, leaving a pair of ladies frozen, while one loses her dessert. Frozen dairy hits the pavement while the duo stares at the fleeing hunk, just as a troupe of performers starts their routine nearby, oblivious to the high-speed nearly naked jogger. The stage crew performs an elaborate fan dance to a famous fruit-themed anthem, appearing fully committed, whereas the ladies behind them are already head over heels for the zooming comet. One more breeze passes as the hero barrels through the park, sporting only those red signs as a loincloth, moving at such velocity that the rhythmic movers remain totally confused. He appears as nothing more than a hazy vision of scarlet cloth and toned physique, making the fiery subtitles on the display far more accurate than the original songwriter intended. The spectators are losing their minds, with several onlookers staring intensely and hollering about the heat, as he inadvertently turns into an internet celebrity in approximately 3 short seconds. Within a park sedan, the corporate type screams into his smartphone regarding the Nice Fellow vs. Calories project, showcasing some impeccable irony as the newly shredded protagonist sprints directly past his passenger window. The chauffeur is so captivated by the sight of a buff dude wearing laundry that he forgets how to operate a vehicle, leading to an inevitable collision as he gorks. The automobile slams into an obstacle, leaving the miserable fellow weeping against the horn, feeling absolutely crushed by the instantaneous destruction of his expensive ride and his dignity. He's having a full-blown existential meltdown, grumbling that currency and comics are meaningless now, having thrown in the towel after witnessing that legend in the Crimson Banner. The narrator is real hyping this up, declaring this the absolute peak of male attractiveness, while Zidan continues his runway strut through town like a fashion model. He's practically glowing, enveloped in a shimmering pink haze as he dashes along, turning every head in sight, as if he's got a perpetual main character blow-up. A gaggle of young ladies is utterly captivated, the cheeks flushing as the dashing figure in the red band streaks past, completely smitten despite his workout attire. The gals are losing their minds, playing flirtatious remarks and requesting his contact info as if he's a pop idol, with one even playfully calling him a scoundrel. Zidan finally hits a wall of mortification, burying his face as he grasps the sheer volume of attention he's drawing, blushing furiously and cringing at the ban-running spectacle. We get a swift glimpse back to his Grand Tian days, when he was also revered, but for entirely different reasons, like a saint receiving pleas for aid with studies and offerings. The contrast is a riot, seeing the old Zidan swarmed by chip-style guys offering him snacks and cash, a familiar scene now hilariously overshadowed by the fervent, thirsty attention he's currently getting. Back in the present, Zidan has managed to creep back home, gasping for air with an exhausted expression, leaning against a door after his public display and speedy getaway. As he catches his breath, he realizes more admirers might be on their way, signaling it's time to make another hasty retreat. His sharp gaze fixed forward, still a bit surprised by his own good looks. Suddenly, a mighty gurgle erupts from his midsection, his stomach vociferously demanding sustenance for all the exertion, his eyes widening in shock at the intensity of his hunger. A close-up reveals his sculpted abs as his stomach growls again with surprising force, his metabolism working overtime, clearly indicating he's ravenously hungry. We cut to the faculty break room where a teacher is staring at his monitor, utterly flabbergasted that the usually dependable Zidan is actually taking a sick day. The teacher is freaking out, sputtering in disbelief that Zidan is ill, breaking into a sweat because he can't comprehend how someone as robust as him could be felled by a bug. He's furiously typing, questioning the very existence of a pathogen capable of incapacitating a powerhouse like Zidan, appearing genuinely spooked, as if he stumbled upon a world-altering secret. This guy is practically having a meltdown, googling terms like biohazard T-virus and musing if humanity faces extinction simply because one happy student has a cold. The scene shifts to a tranquil home where a laptop rests open on a desk, its user engaged in a search far removed from apocalyptic scenarios. The displayed search results are exclusively focused on rapid weight loss and its potential triggers, suggesting Zidan is trying to understand his own miraculous bodily metamorphosis. Then he pivots, becoming engrossed in a reality survival show featuring a group of youngsters greeting the producers, sitting on the floor, utterly mesmerized by the glitz of the idol world. An idol on the screen strikes a flamboyant pose, radiating an inviting aura, while Zidan washes with wide-eyed fascination, clearly energized by the aspiring star's youthful vigor. The idol on screen beckons the audience to choose him with another dynamic pose, set against a backdrop of dazzling special effects, with Zidan intently observing, likely contemplating his own ability to replicate those moves. Zidan is now on his feet in his living room, clad in a sweatshirt and shorts, ready to test out his transformed physique, his gaze fixed on the laptop screen, anticipating the music to commence. He begins to follow the choreography, mirroring the idol's stance with his own hands on hips pose, exhibiting a surprising elegance for someone who was so much larger just the day before. The music kicks in, and he gets into the groove, humming along to lyrics about pursuing aspirations, adopting a wide-legged stance that perfectly matches the blue-haired performer on display. He's completely absorbed, moving with effortless grace as the song speaks of melodies flowing, his newfound agility a stark contrast to his previous substantial frame, weighing perhaps 400 kilograms less. The dance sequence continues as he imitates a white-haired idol's pose, executing precise arm extensions, increasingly resembling a budding performer himself. Observe those slick moves, as he executes a fluid one-handed spin on the floor, his legs a rapid blur, demonstrating impressive talent and the physical prowess to match. He maintains his rhythm, replicating a pink-haired idol's dramatic hand-over-eyes gesture, fully embodying the spirit of youthful performance. With more spins and striking poses, he masters the intricate footwork, even adding his own unique flair and smooth energy as he transitions between steps. He concludes the routine with a final, impactful pose, a hand held near his face, breathing heavily but radiating immense satisfaction from his energetic performance. The melody fades, leaving him breathless, stunned that it finished so fast, while he marvels at how easily those dance steps flowed from his body. Clad in fresh attire, he appreciates his light physique and tight skin, feeling handsome enough to outshine those trendy boy bands he watches. He contemplates his new aesthetic in the mirror, barely recognizing the gorgeous stranger staring back. Having evolved from a sumo wrestler to a K-pop idol overnight, we see him sporting a stylish oversized sweater and red shorts, a total fashion overhaul that makes the old Chi-Time look like a distant memory. Zooming into his wide eyes, he wonders if he is dreaming, since living as a giant for years makes this lean reality seem like a total hallucination. Yet the sensation of firm skin and nimble limbs confirms it is legit, prompting a faint grin as genuine delight starts bubbling up within him. He bursts into joyous laughter, shouting that this is truly him, though the victory dance halts when his belly lets out a monstrous, hungry growl. His stomach churns like a demolition crew, forcing him to clutch his gut while he realizes that maintaining this hot physique comes with a steep price. Surrounded by a literal mountain of empty food containers and boxes, he contemplates his insatiable hunger, realizing he still consumes meals like a hungry beast. A wide overhead shot shows his bedroom buried in trash, forcing him to accept that even after 5 huge meals, he is still starving to death. An internal monologue kicks in with a moody black and red backdrop, as he regrets being too distracted by his newfound joy to foresee the looming trouble. He contemplates how frightening this situation really is, realizing that shedding the weight did not cure his genetics, it just gave them a fancy new disguise. The room is now bathed in eerie purple light, highlighting the wreckage while he grasps that fueling this endless metabolism might bankrupt him faster than expected. Heading toward the 6th hospital in Danshan, it is clear Zaitan is taking his medical screening seriously after that wild physical metamorphosis. We arrive at the office of Dr. Mao, a practitioner widely considered the absolute legend of this specific medical field. The office walls display countless awards praising the doctor for his brilliance and compassion, which is a lot of pressure for a routine visit. Zaitan kicks the door open with a loud slam that terrifies the doctor, desperate to get some solid answers about his condition right away. Dr. Mao glances between a photo of the 420 kilograms Zaitan and the shredded hunk standing there, to which the boy simply offers a casual yep. The doctor stares in total darkness as his brain struggles with this medical mystery, clearly feeling like he is witnessing a literal phantom, pointing a shaky finger while bewildered. The physician calls him kid and begins to question the very fabric of his medical training. Breaking into a cold sweat, the doctor assumes he is being pranked by a science-defying teenager and finally suggests a comprehensive physical checkup. The montage begins as poor Zaitan is poked and prodded by every nurse on staff to track his stats at breakneck speed. Clocks tick rapidly in the background while he undergoes endless scans, sitting there with a bored expression of someone waiting for a bus. After 2 agonizing hours he finally slides out of the MRI chamber, having endured a truly wild and exhausting diagnostic journey. The doctor reviews the final medical documents with trembling fingers, sweating like he just finished a race while muttering about how impossible this is. He scans the blood chemistry panels and finds every single marker sits perfectly within the normal zone, with 0 anomalies to be found anywhere. The doctor screams in frustration, noting there are no red flags on the charts, meaning this kid has the stats of a perfectly balanced video game character. A tight close-up reveals his realization that every single one of his metrics is sitting dead center in the ideal, healthy range. The concept of being perfectly average echoes loudly because for any actual human being, achieving that level of consistency is mathematically absurd. Dr. Mao finally concedes that Zaitan is healthy, or rather so perfectly fit that it defies 4 decades of his professional medical expertise. Zaitan was utterly bewildered, wondering if this meant good news or a terrible diagnosis. He explained that since the fire incident, he'd shed an alarming amount of weight and now felt a constant, all-consuming urge to eat that simply wouldn't go away. He felt entirely ripped off after paying nearly $4,000 just to hear that nothing was wrong with him. Dr. Mao was equally frustrated, feeling like his decades of medical training had just been dismissed as irrelevant nonsense. Defeated, Dr. Mao reluctantly offered some traditional Chinese remedies, basically as a parting gift. Half an hour later, Zaitan was back on the sidewalk, still searching for a genuine explanation for his condition. He stood at the hospital's main intersection feeling completely adrift, convinced the entire medical checkup had been a pointless exercise and wasting both time and money. As he worked through the city, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had fundamentally altered the night he was burned. Even if the doctors failed to notice it, he knew he wasn't the same person anymore. Suddenly, he froze mid-stride, sensing something unusual in the air. His eyes widened as he detected a scent that triggered a deep, animalistic instinct buried inside him. Nearby, 2 young women were giggling and blushing, convinced he was staring at them. Little did they know, this true focus was a delicious-looking wrap held by one of them, the actual target of our hungry protagonist. The girls were completely freaking out, certain this gorgeous man was checking them out with romantic intent, unaware that he didn't care about the hearts at all, only about their snacks. We zoom in on the wrap, which practically glowed with importance, like a holy relic of fast food. It looked absolutely glorious, and Zaitan's mouth began to water uncontrollably just by staring at it. He was drooling like a famished puppy, feeling as if a literal black hole had opened up where his stomach used to be. The overwhelming sensation of hunger began to override all logic and common sense. The void in his stomach was the only thought he could form now. It was an insatiable pit of intense craving that nothing in this world seemed capable of satisfying for long. He started sprinting through the city, and everywhere he looked, all he saw were food advertisements, banners, and street stalls, that all blurred together into a delicious, agonizing visual assault of temptation. He ran at full speed, feeling as though his stomach might actually begin digesting itself from the inside out. He was terrified that if he didn't stop drooling excessively, he might genuinely go insane. The hunger escalated into a dark, swirling madness, forcing him to clutch his head in agony. He was haunted by visions of hot pot feasts and endless cooking shows, even considering that he might actually turn to cannibalism if he didn't eat soon. We find ourselves in front of a fast food restaurant, where Zaitan prepares to unleash his hunger upon some unsuspecting menu items. The poor cashier was simply trying to work her shift, politely greeting each customer with a practiced smile. She had no idea she was about to face an order large enough to feed a small army. Zaitan slammed his palms onto the counter with such force that the startled employee jumped dramatically. She immediately started blushing, mistakenly thinking this handsome stranger was trying a dramatic romantic pose on her. He was panting heavily, staring her down with intense, ravenous eyes. She was completely swooning, but his focus was actually fixed on the menu board hanging directly behind her head. He began rattling off his order at high speed, demanding 2 servings each of chicken tenders, taco fries, and specialty burgers. He was essentially attempting to purchase the entire restaurant menu in one go. We see him heading up another fast food joint, clearly for round 2 of his meal. He was on a frantic, sea-wide food crawl to satisfy the bottomless pit in his stomach. He arrived at yet another location, slamming the counter again and demanding 2 servings each of cheeseburgers, chicken sandwiches, and fish sandwiches. The list kept getting longer, leaving all the employees in absolute shock. At the next stop, he was already halfway through a burger at the table, taking an enormous, greedy bite. He rapidly listed off various pizza options as quickly as a fast-forwarded commercial. He chomped down on another burger while simultaneously ordering large peppered combos and Texas smoked burgers. He looked like he was trapped in a deep, food-induced trance. He was outside a new establishment, and he still wasn't finished. He had transformed into a human vacuum cleaner for everything deep-fried and loaded with calories. With a piece of food still in his mouth, he declared his ultimate objective. He wanted everything. He had completely lost all ability for self-restraint. The scene shifts to his house later in the day. The sun shone outside, but the atmosphere inside was likely anything but peaceful after that enormous binge. A massive pile of takeout containers sat on the table. He let out a deep sigh of relief, believing he had finally satisfied his hunger. He stood there, looking at a literal tower of empty boxes and discarded wrappers. He announced that he was full, but the dark background suggested it was more of an observation than a genuine physical feeling. He began to drift into a memory, staring off into the distance. All the junk food he just consumed was ironically bringing back vivid core memories from his childhood. The flashback shows a young Zaitan happily devouring a burger with pure joy. His eyes were wide with that innocent, first-time experience of food excitement. His mom, with a warm smile, happily observes him eating, declaring his happiness is all that truly matters. She was simply delighted to witness her son reveling in life's simple pleasures. His dad stands tall, a mountain of muscle, watching his son with what's surely a proud, albeit stoic, expression. The enormous dad bends down to gently ruffle his son's hair, preparing to impart some wisdom destined to echo in the young boy's mind forever. Shot from a low angle, emphasizing his sheer bulk, the dad instructs the boy to engrave the name of his current culinary delight into his memory. The lingering word, junk food, floats in the air, a straightforward lesson from a bygone era of uncomplicated joys. Back in the now, Chitan is weeping, remembering his decade-long commitment to blind vegan fare for weight loss, mourning the years of delectable, breezy goodness he sacrificed. A montage of his younger self unfolds, the picture of sadness and defeat, as the burden of extra pounds and a restrictive diet took a heady toll. The tearful young Chitan looks up, a hopeful smile gracing his lips as the technology announces it missed him, finally reunited with his beloved forbidden foods. He's now completely encircled by ethereal visions of flying burgers, pizzas, and fries, truly in his culinary paradise, even if it resembles a rather vivid hallucination. He's full on wailing with sheer joy, appearing to have found ultimate solace in a greasy takeout bag, a wonderfully over-the-top reaction to some fast grub. The text bubble appears, announcing, a while later, prompting us to wonder if he's finally sated. He's sprawled on the floor, surrounded by shopping bags from nearly every boutique in the metropolis, already stuffed but wisely stocking up for future cravings. He surveys his impressive hoard, calculating that it should suffice. Considering his earlier voracious appetite, planning his next gastronomic attack, we're treated to a minuscule, ship-by version of Chitan, meticulously counting something, perhaps his dwindling cash or the sheer volume of his food boxes, the charming interlude in his Epicurean adventure, or rather shocking realization dawns. He possesses enough sustenance for only a single day, this hyperactive metabolism demanding daily feasts. His complexion turns ashen as the grim reality sets in. His entire existence and fortune will be dedicated solely to appeasing his relentless hunger. He stands there, a picture of dejection, resembling a fallen zombie, lamenting the ironic twist of fate as he ponders his newly expensive lifestyle. He settles at the table, gazing at several sachets of traditional Chinese medicine, acknowledging the urgent need for an alternative solution to his overwhelming cravings before they completely consume him. He begins decanting the herbal concoction into a large glass pitcher, clinging to the hope that this untested remedy might offer some respite where indulgent food had failed. He reflects on his past fear of eating while overweight, contrasting it with his current 20-fold increase in appetite now that he's slim, muttering about life's cruel jokes. He eyes a jug of potent medicine, his last beacon of hope against the gnawing emptiness. So desperate he try just about anything. The medicinal liquid begins to gurgle and hiss in the jug, and as he anticipates its readiness, he suddenly exclaims how incredibly hot it is. In a moment of clumsiness, he douses himself entirely with a scalding brew, crying out in pain as the blistering liquid makes contact with his skin. He's writhing on the floor, moaning in torment as the fiery fluid spreads around him, a medicinal experiment rapidly devolving into a household calamity. Abruptly, he freezes, his eyes widening with a sudden, dawning awareness. Something feels distinctly off about the preceding events. He pauses, a profound realization striking him. He only dropped the jug because he heard the sound of boiling water, not due to the heat. He glances down at his drenched torso but detects absolutely no sensation of heat, astonishingly discovering the water had boiled without the jug ever being placed on heat. A truly uncanny, possibly supernatural, phenomenon is clearly occurring within his body. Zaitan stares, oddly stunned, at his own hand. The truth has just clicked into place. The only possible explanation for the water's boiling was his own touch. He snatches a thermometer, eager to validate his bizarre theory, peering as if he's seen a specter as he holds the device aloft, preparing to measure his own temperature. He recoils in shock as the thermometer practically detonates with a loud asterisk bang asterisk, completely flabbergasted by the astronomical readings displayed on its screen. This barbecue gadget is blaring another deafening alarm, protesting the scorching heat radiating from his body. The gadget chirps loudly in his hand, delivering a final warning. He's gazing at it with wide, startled eyes, completely flabbergasted by the reading. The number is a whopping 230 degrees Celsius, which is basically how hot an oven gets. He spent 3 days chilling in solitary confinement to understand his body's bizarre transformations. After enduring 3 days of personal experiments, he's finally cracked the code. His body has gone through 3 astonishing, reality-bending shifts that science can't explain. First off, his height has been recalibrated. He's shrunk from an imposing 220 centimeter behemoth to a still quite tall, but more manageable 187 centimeters, according to his mirror. The second transformation is the real jaw-dropper. His weight has drastically dropped from a hefty 480 kilograms down to a surprisingly svelte 62 kilograms, a fact verified by his digital scale. And his appetite has gone wild. It's a staggering 20 times larger than before, forcing him to devour entire all-you-can-eat spreads just to maintain his newfound energy. Finally, while his baseline metabolism hasn't spiked, his hands mysteriously become mini heaters after he eats, forcing him to nervously jiggle the fridge handle while pondering the warmth. He picks up an egg, and it begins to steam in his palm before it cracks from the sheer heat. His hands possess an uncontrollable power to instantly incinerate excess calories. He escalates things by plunging his hand directly into a roaring blue gas stove flame, remaining utterly unfazed, as his entire being is now impervious to heat. He gazes into the distance with a determined look, confirming his astonishing new ability. Flames are no longer a threat, a rather fortunate development considering how this all began. His phone suddenly pings with a notification on the table. He glances over, and his calm expression instantly dissolves into one of pure dread. Just 3 cents remain in his bank account, and with a colossal $8,000 monthly payment looming, he's starting to realize that being a hottie comes with a hefty price tag. Time jumps ahead a week, and it's finally time for his grand re-entry into school. The campus is abuzz with activity as the students assemble for the day. Students are milling about and chatting in the corridors, completely oblivious that the reality is about to be dramatically shaken. The atmosphere is electric as everyone anticipates class. Some lads are busy spreading rumors about Big Tan being hospitalized with severe burns from the gym fire, completely unaware he's about to stroll through those very doors. Suddenly, a dazzling burst of light commands everyone's attention. It's as if a runway model has just graced the hallway, leaving everyone utterly mesmerized. A student is leaning over the railing, wistfully sighing for the beloved Big Daddy Zaitan, who's been missing for over a week. They've clearly missed the heartthrob of the school. He spots an unfamiliar face approaching, and his jaw practically drops in sheer astonishment. He has no clue who this remarkably attractive person working towards them could be. Zaitan makes a spectacular entrance, practically radiating light and surrounded by a shimmering aura, casually waving to his astonished classmates as if he's the new campus ruler. He sports that classic, cocky protagonist smirk, relishing everyone's shocked expressions, mentally congratulating himself on predicting this exact outcome. The female students are completely overwhelmed, with some practically swooning, proclaiming his incredible handsomeness while the guys are left speechless. He's effortlessly captivating the ladies and leaving the gentleman in his wake with his model-worthy looks, fully embracing his new superstar status as he glides past the commoners. He glances at a cluster of students with an air of absolute haughtiness, silently labeling them all as mere peasants while basking in his own radiant confidence. The boys finally shake off the super and demand to know his identity, utterly clueless that this is the same chap who rescued them just the previous week. His cool facade shatters instantly into a comical, childish tantrum. He's bellowing in frustration because, honestly, not a single soul at school recognizes him. He's on the brink of tears, feeling a crushing sense of failure. He'd spent years anticipating this grand reveal, and now he's a complete stranger to everyone. A girl stops him, her expression suggesting she's finally figured it out. He looks back at her with a flicker of hope that at least one person remembers his true identity. She inquires if he could possibly be him, gazing intently into his eyes with a blush, the suspense thick as she prepares to name her ideal guy. And then she delivers the surprise, revealing it was you from her dream last night. Chitine's face instantly darkens with profound exasperation. Our poor protagonist, looking absolutely frazzled, eyes like burnt toast and veins ready to burst, was clearly at his wit's end. This endless perfect boyfriend Gerard had pushed him past boiling point, leaving him poised to spontaneously combust. He finally hit his limit, unleashing a primal scream that echoed through the entire campus, declaring for all to hear, "I'm Chitine." The entire school probably needed new eardrums after that declaration. The collective student reaction was nothing short of legendary, every face in the hallway frozen in wide-eyed shock. They looked as if they just witnessed a zombie apocalypse unfold or heard the most terrifying ghost story imaginable. To certify his true identity, he commenced publicly broadcasting everyone's most mortifying secrets. He started by outing Wangtakura as a total chicken, the perennial victim of bullying until Chitine himself intervened. Lou Zaori was next on the chopping block, as Chitine revealed Lou's online cheating escapades at an internet cafe, which led to him being chased by 17 gargantuan guys before Big Time rode into the rescue. Not one to stop a good humiliation. He reminded Zhao Shido of the time he literally wet his trousers during a robbery. He was systematically dismantling reputations, one embarrassing anecdote at a time, just to prove his existence. He even mentioned someone's secret-made costume purchase and another's lingering debt of 3 cups of unsweetened bitter melon juice. The boys, utterly devastated, were subbing and pleading for him to zip it. These mere mortals were utterly defeated, unanimously conceding that this was indeed Daddy Chitine, beyond a shadow of a doubt. He had successfully inflicted widespread emotional distress upon his entire former fan club. Meanwhile, the female contingent swooned even harder, absolutely thrilled by his exposé of male vulnerability. They were entirely convinced he'd simply undergone extreme liposuction and emerged as a bona fide deity. Chitine's grand re-entry into school was practically a Hollywood premiere, as he strolled through the corridors with a literal fan club of girls trailing behind him. The boys, up front, were openly weeping, watching the monopoly on female adoration vanish into thin air. Inside the classroom, the teacher introduced him as a genuine medical marvel, explaining his astounding transformation to the class as a result of her fire, extensive liposuction, and numerous skin grafts. Quite the tall tale. The boys collective roared back to life, immediately hollering for the Big Daddy with a death shove that probably registered on the Richter scale. The girls, meanwhile, remained utterly mesmerized, parts floating in their eyes. Our protagonist settled into his seat, exuding the kind of effortless cool that suggested he was about to drop the year's most anticipated album. He possessed an aura that made everyone in the room gaze at him as if he were a living legend. The instructor attempted to restore order, tapping his desk and announcing that the lesson would now commence. Everyone was supposedly meant to focus, though we all knew that kind of attention span was an alien concept in this particular classroom. The scene shifted to our resident gamer in the back, who let out a self-satisfied chuckle, a knowing look plastered across his face. He clearly believed he was about to execute the most epic prank known to mankind. With an audible clatter, this absolute legend unceremoniously plopped a gargantuan flat-screen TV right onto his desk, no longer bothering with any pretense of subtlety or concealment. He hunched intently over his controller, fully focused and primed for action. He genuinely thought his setup was a masterpiece of covert operations, but to the rest of us, it was a glaring billboard for gaming. The digital battle had begun. His screen showcased intense, high-octane gameplay. His red controller clutched tightly as he completely disregarded every single word the teacher uttered. Suddenly, a literal ballerina materialized atop a desk, gracefully executing a full, elaborate routine right in the middle of class. This back row, quite frankly, was a free-for-all circus. It was a rapid-fire sequence of classroom anarchy. One student fed a cat, another cradled a potted tree, while a third was sprawled across 3 desks, oddly comatose. One enthusiastic kid even declared "I'm Gundam" while striking a dramatic pose. The entire back row was a full-blown spectacle of absurdity, a veritable circus tent. Dancing, napping, gardening, you name it, they were doing it. It was essentially a wild, lawless territory back there. Our gamer remained oddly blissful, perfectly content and immersed in his music and his game. He genuinely seemed like the happiest soul on the planet at that very moment. With a sharp thwack, the ever-vigilant class president nailed him with a precisely aimed paper ball, clearly unamused. She was practically fuming, warning him to pay attention before he got cored, but he remained completely deaf to her pleas. She practically radiated steam, demanding if he wasn't terrified of the teacher's wrath. He merely chuckled softly, seemingly utterly unfazed by her dire predictions and warnings. He strutted with a sense of exaggerated self-importance, proclaiming that the symbol of freedom had finally returned. He was utterly convinced he was perfectly camouflaged behind the supreme protector of the entire student body. Well, brace yourselves for a dose of cold, hard reality. He was now shielded by a much slimmer Shitain, leaving his entire gaming setup utterly exposed for the teacher's hawk-like gaze. The teacher's expression, captured below, spoke volumes. Big blunder, pal. We were treated to an extreme close-up of both the teacher's and the gamer's eyes. The crushing realization was hitting our gaming protagonist like a ton of bricks, and his future was looking decidedly grim. The back row erupted into instant pandemonium. Everyone frantically tried to conceal their tutus, dismantle their desks, and stash their illicit pets, having suddenly understood that human shield had dramatically downsized. It was a hysterical mess of frantic shoves and sudden, rigid postures. One blonde student simply stared blankly, oddly disoriented. He knew his cover was irrevocably blown, signaling the official end of his free-spirited, rule-bending existence. The back row had disintegrated into a full-scale wailing session. They were all collectively boohooing over the tragic demise of their perfect hiding spot, looking as though the very fabric of their world had just unraveled. The aspiring ballerina is having an emotional crisis, wailing about her crushed dancing ambitions. Apparently, Chi-Chan's new diet plan completely sabotaged her hopes for performing in class. We see a strange, symbolic cut to some bird students chirping away in a tree. They look totally content and free, but we know exactly what is coming next in this comic. 2 instructors dressed up like lumberjacks decide this particular tree needs to be removed. They are inspecting the trunk, clearly preparing to bring the whole thing crashing down. The avian students are panicking, letting out frantic chirps as the chains resort to life. Their cozy sanctuary is about to be completely demolished and turned into a pile of wood chips. The tree falls with a deafening crash, taking with it all the birds' independence. One teacher wipes his brow, completely oblivious to the existential dread he just caused some woodland creatures. The bird students flee the ruins of their former paradise, flying toward a gloomy city skyline. This marks the sad conclusion for the legendary era of the back row anarchists. The ballerina continues her emotional breakdown, mourning how the spot was her last hope for achieving her dreams. This level of over-the-top melodrama is completely extra, which perfectly explains why this comic is so great. Back in the classroom, the teacher is dealing with the emotional fallout. The students are filled with despair, as the previously chaotic back row area has now been completely sanitized. Lessons have resumed, but the atmosphere feels completely weird. Every single person in the room is frozen, looking toward the back like they just spotted a spectral entity. The student in the foreground looks completely bewildered, practically emitting a massive question mark above his head. He is attempting to understand the incredible aesthetic improvement taking place just a short distance from him. It turns out to be Shitan, and he is fully embracing his stunning new appearance. He offers a nonchalant greeting, literally shining with friends-like sparkles and energy that leaves the entire class absolutely stunned. As our protagonist takes his place, the ballerina girl immediately falls into a deep trance. She is completely hypnotized by him with a typical fangirl gaze, entirely forgetting about the ongoing lecture. The close-up reveals the ballerina girl has completely lost her mind. She is blushing intensely, drowned by cartoon hearts, convinced in her head that he possesses far too much good looking for his own survival. Eventually, afternoon break arrives, and students immediately migrate to the balconies. They are all eager to discuss the unbelievable metamorphosis they just observed. The silver-haired tormentor and his assistant attempt to keep a low profile. Abruptly, someone yells for the leader, causing him to jump out of his skin. The blonde assistant is completely panicking, clutching his boss's arm in pure terror. He has learned Shitan has returned to campus and is absolutely certain they are marked for immediate execution. The silver-haired boss looks equally distressed, sweating profusely and tearing up as the gravity of the situation hits him. He's completely losing it, claiming there was no way he could have known the gymnasium would actually go up in flames. The assistant points out the major flaw in their plan, reminding the boss they forgot their evidence at the scene of the crime. He is terrified that the homicidal Shitan, who apparently trains for revenge, will now track them down. The boss manages to compose himself slightly, finally letting go of his sidekick shirt. He attempts to project an air of nonchalance with a slight huff, but his trembling gives away his fear. Suddenly, his expression darkens completely, and his eyes take on a frightening, truly villainous gaze. He delivers the ultimate declaration: if that's the situation, they simply have to eliminate him. The assistant shudders with terror, claiming he would prefer a balcony jump over encountering an enraged Shitan. His boss coldly gives him two options: be thoroughly beaten later, or simply die immediately. The boss begins to emotionally manipulate his companion, explaining that even if he tries to escape, Shitan will hunt him down and demolish him. It's definitely a lose-lose scenario. The unfortunate blonde kid explodes into a dramatic fit of wailing and desperation. He has finally accepted that there is zero chance of avoiding the consequences of their actions. He is now completely inconsolable, wishing he had chosen to be a moral individual from day one. His boss, exasperated by the crying, demands silence, stating that he has already made preparations. The boss reveals his brilliant strategy, believing Shitan's new slim physique is actually a huge liability. He figures losing all that mass essentially turned the formerly human tank into a fragile target. The assistant pauses his waterworks just to let out a confused little huh, indicating he remains unconvinced that a muscular Shitan has become less formidable. The boss fondly recalls the big daddy Shitan of old, asserting that a true brawl prioritizes sheer weight and bulk. He is completely convinced the redesigned, slender version is easily defeated. He assumes Shitan is at his most vulnerable state right now, making it the ideal moment for an attack. The boss's extreme overconfidence is almost certainly going to lead to his downfall, right? The boss orders his absolutely terrified sidekick to accompany him to a secretive gathering. They are making their way deep into the most questionable corners of the city. The scene shows us the rough, deteriorating street they are navigating. This specific location practically advertises itself as a spot for an illegal gang rendezvous. They halt before a decrepit shack, which is clearly the premier pick for anyone trying to plan a gruesome homicide. The structure is secretly a gargantuan warehouse, appearing delightfully spooky, which fits a final villain encounter perfectly. As the door slams shut, the nervous sidekick starts shaking again, asking his superior why they are haunting this dump. The leader flashes a frantic, unsettling smile, signaling his partner to witness the impressive reinforcements he summoned. Feast your eyes on this squad, a complete parade of local hoodlums ranging from bat-swinging thugs to fancy crime lords. Packed with thugs from 20 districts, that tiny schoolyard bull has truly gone overboard with this vendetta scheme. The head honcho lounges on a pile of wooden crates, radiating danger while the murmurs amplify the ominous vibe. That is Lu Vu, the unmoving king, sporting a creepy crimson eye and a scar warning everyone against wasting his day. Azure Dragon of Yusheng Street sits there teasing his blade, threatening to spill blood if this gathering proves dull. Watching him lick that cold steel is unsettling, as this nutcase clearly finds way too much joy in potential carnage. The silver-haired man is posed like a polite schoolboy, attempting to maintain some dignity while justifying his reckless invitation. He proudly declares that everyone should unite to pulverize Sutan, feeling quite smug about his brilliant battle plan. The room erupts in disbelief, causing the mighty unmoving king to tumble backward off his improvised wooden throne instantly. There he goes, that fearsome king of crime pulled off a perfect slapstick tumble, providing us with some top-tier comedy. Seething with rage, the king bellows at the kid, wondering if staying healthy isn't superior to provoking a guy like Shitan. A hilarious blunder emerges, as the king screams because he assumed they were meeting for a spicy hot pot dinner. The dragon is subbing because he packed his specialized knife thinking they were going out for a fancy crab feast.